Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Celtic Down Under weekend review, where we take a deep dive into Hearts 2, Celtic 0. This week, I'm joined by Richard Tobin. Paul Massey's on holidays. Richard, how you going? How was your weekend?
Very good. Thanks very much, Anthony. Thank you for inviting me along again. Sorry about all my technical glitches last week. No, great and really good form. Lovely weekend. And yeah, fingers crossed everything all works technically tonight. I was really excited. I sat up last night to watch the game thinking it couldn't be set any better. Motherwell having done an amazing job, and then thinking, right, okay, we're going to reclaim the top spot. It just didn't quite happen the way we'd hoped. And some interesting text messages between us, which I'm sure we'll recount as the conversation evolves this evening.
Absolutely. Before we get into the football, I'm happy to announce that I became an uncle during the week for the first time. So I want to say a big welcome to Jack Anthony Maguire, my little nephew. So
Many congratulations, mate.
Thank you. My brother Ian and his wife Caitlin are doing very well. And I'm going down south to see them this weekend. So I'm looking forward to have a wee cuddle with Jack. He did come before the Dundee game, so he was a good luck charm. So his first game wasn't the Hearts game last night. He did take in the Celtic demolition of Dundee. So we're hoping that that's a good sign of things to come. So that was some nice welcome news earlier last week. Richards, before we sort of get into the game itself, you sort of touched on it there. Rangers slipping up at home, but unexpectedly against Motherwell, getting beat 2-1. We absolutely thrashed Dundee at home. We were, 6-0 up at halftime. Ended up 7-1 overall, 7 different scorers. Daniel Kelly came off the bench and got I thought, the pick of the goals, but, Carter Victor scored from a set piece, Ida scoring a header. All looked very positive, all looked really good. And then obviously buoyed by the fact that 24 hours beforehand, the Huns slip up at home, sets it up for a bit of a blockbuster fixture at Tynecastle. And probably for the first 13 minutes, the script was going according to plan. And then obviously it all goes off the rails after that, which we'll touch on in just a second. So before we get into the game itself, how were you sort of feeling beforehand? And then I guess we'll tie it in with the team lines, because the major team news leading into the match was the fact that Callum McGregor had picked up an Achilles injury and he was unavailable for the match at Tynecastle. But also it's looking like he's going to be unavailable until after the international break. So firstly, thoughts on before the game, how are you feeling confident, and then, or not, and then just the team news as well, and then we'll get into the game itself.
I think after the way we finished against Motherwell and also the way we started against Dundee, I couldn't help but feel pretty optimistic. Hearts had a patchy week or two. They got absolutely smashed by Rangers the other week at Ibrox, and then had a bit of a kind of soporific 1-1 draw middle of the week against Hibs. Usually kind of high energy, Edinburgh derby, and it wasn't a great game. And I managed to see some of that back too. So I was really hoping that we were going to emerge with the same kind of energy that we'd had, and I was hoping that we were going to start the game in the way that had been the emblem from Dundee. I remember kind of on some group chats in the middle of the week saying, "Welcome back, Celtic. It's great to see you," because we'd had quite a tricky season up until this point. It has been a bit iffy, and I think I touched on this last week when we spoke in the podcast about how which Celtic are going to turn up. There is reason for optimism because we have moments of being really unplayable. And that first half against Dundee is evidence of that. And then really optimistic going into the Hearts game, thinking, right, okay, this is the opportunity. We knew we were going to get chances. We're still going to get chances. It's not over yet, but this is a chance. And I was really hoping that that's something we're going to capitalise on. Didn't work out that way.
Yes, it was. I must admit, I really thought with 10 games to go, I thought this was our chance, our opportunity to really sort of put a season-defining performance in. So I was really wasn't expecting it to be easy. I was expecting it to be a tough game, but I thought, here's an opportunity for the team to really stand up. Obviously, the absence of Callum McGregor, a bit of a shock, because obviously there was, we only sort of got the mood music on that on Friday when Sky reported that he wasn't at training, which is obviously highly unusual for Cal Mac. And then obviously that led to him not being available. So obviously a bit of a sizable hole to fill, but obviously with the inclusion of Iwata into the team at that number 6 position, pushing Callum McGregor a bit further forward, you're then sort of thinking, well, that gives Paulo Bernardo an opportunity to actually get a start, because obviously as soon as I heard that Cal Mac was out, I figured he was going to be the logical replacement. He's the next tab off the rank, and I really was hoping that he was going to put on a really big performance, but we'll get into it, but he never really sort of quite hit the heights in that first half, subsequently substituted at halftime for Kyogo. We'll come back to Callum McGregor on that. Yeah.
I was going to say that I think Cal Mac's going to be out for a few weeks. By all accounts, he was in a boot on Thursday, Friday, and with my knowledge otherwise of matters not related necessarily to Celtic but sports medicine, that usually means that somebody's going to be relatively cautious, and he's looking at 2 to 6 weeks. So I think Brendan Rodgers has already said that he's not going to be playing in the Scottish games when they come up towards the end of the coming months, where we're in March now. And he's looking to get him back as soon as possible within a couple of games. But indications, and knowing Cal Mac and how what a competitor he has been, I'll be surprised if he's back within the next couple of games.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've got the cup game against Livingston at the weekend, and then we've got the last league game before the break at home to St Johnstone. So you think that we might be able to navigate those 2 fixtures, you would think, without him, and then that gives him 3 weeks from now to recover. Then that sort of puts you in that sort of 2 to 6 week window ballpark. But you'd really want him back. We play Livingston again after the break, and then we're going to go to Mordor after that. So you're kind of hoping that he's back playing that Livingston game before we have to travel to Ibrox.
I feel your anxiety, Anthony. I feel your anxiety. Let's talk about the game on
yes,
last night.
Yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves. You're absolutely right. So
it was a great game. I actually really enjoyed it. It was a good game of football, and I thought Hearts played pretty well. They contributed. Yeah, we didn't play as well as we can play. We weren't as enthusiastic or maybe as energetic as we can be. Hangovers, whatever. Cal Mac lacked. I thought that the midfield lacked balance, both before and after the interval. But yeah, tell me, for you, what the big talking points are. I mean, there's several of them, so pick one.
Well, we'll do them in chronological order, because that's how I've got them written down on the page, and it probably makes the most sense. I don't know. Be outrageous, but I guess the first major talking point is Celtic's penalty that was awarded to them. So that was on the 13th minute, I believe. So it was a nice 1-2 between Yang and Matt O'Reilly. Matt O'Reilly put a nice weighted pass into the front of Yang, cuts across Alex Cochrane and draws the foul, which leads to a penalty. Don Robertson, no hesitation, pointing to the spot. On replay, it did appear to be a touch soft. Chris Sutton calling it as much. But he did catch his heels. I mean, so you can sort of say, well, I've seen them not given, but then equally I've seen them given. So you maybe feel Celtic at that point were feeling slightly fortunate. A big decision going our way. So that brings Adam Ida to the penalty spot. And unfortunately, he decides to do a wee sort of change his run up, and then sort of tries to hit it right down the middle, but unfortunately doesn't hit it with enough power, and also hits it low enough that Xander Clark can get his big toe on it and clear the lines. And unfortunately, that's a massive missed opportunity. Little did we know 3 minutes later how much of a missed opportunity it would be, but very a real sliding doors moment in the game so early on as well. But Richard, did you think it was a penalty? And then what did you make of Ida's attempt?
So the penalty was a shoulder charge going into a body check, going into a bit of a trip. And he went sprawling, which was the right thing to do because he clearly lost all balance. Fair enough. again, seen them given both ways, and I think that was actually fair enough. And interesting that it's kind of VAR callback. So I will come back to that point in a second because VAR was a kind of big talking point in this kind of thing. Yang. So I actually went to the trouble of going back to the kind of the original rules of the game, and I've been on the FA.com website today.
Oh,
it's all about reckless endangerment. And reckless endangerment, and whether or not you've recklessly endangered the player and or violence. So reckless endangerment, yes, you could argue it was a yellow. That was the decision on the field. I think it was probably a yellow. I think I heard several of the kind of experienced pundits after the game saying that they thought it was a red on review of the kind of video. It's a really tricky one. You've got someone coming in for the ball, challenging with their head. Could Yang have foreseen that this person was going to challenge for the ball with their head? Probably not. His foot, he was already committed. I think it's a very harsh red card, but then I would say that I'm a Celtic fan. But again, I've seen them given either way as well. I think, in fairness, probably not a penalty. Sorry, probably a penalty, probably not a red card.
You jumped ahead of me there, Richard, but that's okay. That obviously 3 minutes later, so we missed the penalty, and then basically the next phase of play after the penalty, we draw out wide. Ball comes up bouncing, so Yang's trying to flick it over Cochrane's head, really. Cochrane comes steaming in, and like you say, there's contact. I think the original decision of a yellow card was the right one. There was no force behind the flick. The only force that's created in that situation is Alex Cochrane running into Yang's boot. It's not Yang's boot kicking Alex Cochrane's head. So for me, I feel that Yang was a little bit blindsided as well because he's sort of half on the turn. So it's kind of in his peripheral vision. He's trying to do something spectacular. Trying to do something, something we like to watch, creative, tricky football. And he's been penalised harshly for it. And this is where he's been booked. And then VAR's come over the top and went, "Oh, Don, have another look at this, see what you think." And the minute it goes to the monitor, they're going to change the decision because they just feel the referee feels under so much pressure. And it's basically saying that, well, I've had the benefit of looking at this on the TV for the last 2 minutes. You need to have a look at this because I'm right and you've got this wrong. And they're loath to stick to the original decision. But the original decision in this situation, I feel, was the right one. And it's just trying to create this situation, Richard, where if you are an attacking player and you have a bicycle kick in the box or whatever, if you're a defender, you're just ready to throw your head. You're just ready to throw your head at it. You're just ready to take a kick to the head, just to at the very least get a foul, if not get the player sent off.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, it's just this. We're going to touch on the handball in a minute because we may as well get all these out of the way because these are obviously all the points of the main. We could be wrapped up in half an hour today at this rate because, really, this is where the crux of the game was won and lost. But it's just stupid. And I understand if someone's coming in, and I go back to the one where. David Turnbull got done for one last year, and it was fairly mild. But at least he was directing his foot towards the opposition player, so you can sort of say, well, yes, that is potentially dangerous. But in Yang's situation, yeah, he caught him, but it's Alex Cochrane creating that contact. It's not the other way. It's not the other way around. So I can't get my head around it. And so I'll let you. Any further thoughts on that?
No, I just reiterate. I mean, I think he was isolated, and I've watched it again and again and again, thinking, right, okay, I am going to convince this time it should have been red, and I'm just not. And I think it's really unfortunate. And I think, Brendan Rodgers, it was great. I watched them afterwards talking, and I hope not to get too far ahead of us here, but watched them sort of 4 interviews, consistently the same message. He clearly thought about what he was going to say, and saying again and again and again, look, you know what, referees have changed the game here. It's a very consistent, clear message. And he was also very vehement in his, this is John Beaton, what was going on with you watching the same game, and it's a game of football. But anyway, yes, coming back to the handball, Anthony, what were your thoughts on that?
Well, well, just I'm just bringing some comments from the gallery. So, got my Aish. He's saying every professional footballer knows that if you show studs up these days, you're in the laps of the gods. Better decisions made in the moment, absolute brain fades. And then Paddy Lonergan, he's saying that when you bring your foot up the high, that you always run the wrist. Put that down to inexperience, maybe inexperience with Masonic VAR officials. But look, so I mean, we get the red card. That's obviously a bit of a, bit kind of changes the tone of the match at that point, because obviously, going down to 10 men that early in the game, it really creates a much more open game. I think before that, Hearts were quite happy to sit in and soak in and take the pressure and hit in the counter. But now, with it being 10 versus 11, they kind of went a bit more, a bit more intense, a bit more of a press, really trying to sort of squeeze us and try and sort of, obviously get a foothold in the game. But we were actually the next team who nearly scored, because we had the opportunity where the ball was played through to Adam Ida. You can see he's offside. Like, the minute the ball was played through, he sort of trips over it, and it kind of exaggerates how much he was offside. And then the play continues, and I'm like, what is the linesman doing? Because it was as clear as a whistle that he was offside. Anyway, play goes on. Ball gets cut across to Matt O'Reilly, who just tucks it home, bounces off the post. Great goal. And as soon as it went, the linesman puts his flag up. And this obviously went on for a bit. We did 30 seconds after Ida receives the ball. So I was sitting there going, like, was that necessary? Like, you think of all the possible scenarios that could happen in that 30 seconds. Like, just put your flag up. And clearly it was offside. But he waited until that, and then the flag goes up. So that was just mind-boggling. But anyway, it gave me some confidence that we could hit Hearts on the break and maybe get a goal. So then, fast forward to this, obviously their penalty. I really think that something that's overlooked in this penalty shout situation is that the ball that goes up in the air and hits AJ and then bounces into Iwata, who's coming back down and has his arm in the air or outstretched, is the fact that Liam Stales fluffs his clearance. So Liam Stales, under no real pressure, all he has to do is put a clearing header out past the 18-yard box. His header loops up in the air, straight up, and then that's what leads to the penalty. So in two situations in this game, we are almost the architect of our own downfall here, because if he just scores that penalty, well, the whole Yang situation doesn't happen. And then, all right, if that one doesn't happen, that happens the way it happens, then if Stales clears the ball properly, like we know he can, but he didn't, then that whole penalty situation doesn't arise. But then you've got a ball that's coming off AJ onto Iwata. I'm pretty sure IFAB rules state that when it comes off another player or your own teammate, it can't be a penalty. Iwata's got his back turned. He's coming down. So what's he supposed to do with his arms? He's supposed to just chop them off. I mean, I think football now, you basically have to be an amputee to play football, because you're just in a ridiculous situation. John Robertson doesn't even notice it, play on, and then John Beaton decides to get involved again. So not enough to get a red card, but then has to go in and go, oh no, that's a penalty. When Connor Golson's had a few of these in the last one against Aberdeen's classic one, it's doing the rounds on Twitter today. No difference. Absolutely. Actually, the only difference is that it doesn't come off another Rangers player first. It just comes off his arm. And that wasn't a penalty. And guess who was the official that day? John Beaton.
Impedance corner here. Here's the rule. The player is considered to have made their body unnaturally bigger when the position of their hand or arm is not a consequence or justifiable to the player's body movement for that specific situation. I think you can argue that your man was coming down in that specific situation, and it was most unfortunate that he made contact with his arm. In the rules, they have illustrations now, below the shirt sleeve and all this kind of thing. Yeah, look, anything that touches your arm in the box, it's likely a penalty. And yes, we've all seen it go either way, but it just shows you what a schmozzle VAR has made of the whole kind of penalty thing. Interesting that Rangers got a penalty at the weekend through VAR as well. Penalties to Rangers at Ibrox. Never ever heard that.
Never. this rule has been obviously enforced now for the last few seasons, but it needs reworked. But again, he got a situation where he's forensically analysing a situation, looking for trouble when, the Hearts players weren't even like around it. There was no possibility that anything was going to come of that at all. And then somehow that's a penalty. I just feel that handball rule needs to come back into something along the lines of if it's going goal bound or it's going towards the danger area, then yes. But if the ball's going away from goal, then I think there has to be some leniency, or I don't know how you word it. I'm not a lawyer. There's people far smarter than me who are involved in the governance of football, but the current rule is not fit for purpose. And that was just a ridiculous situation. Again, the right decision was made on the field in the initial instance. And again, as soon as you're called to that screen, Don Robertson's under immense pressure to then change his decision. And you knew as soon as he looked at it, went, oh yeah, there's a penalty there. But I mean, Awad doesn't know anything about it. Like he's literally got his back turned. Like you almost say the game's gone. And I think you said it after the red card, let alone the penalty. But it was just, it just totally ruins the game. Because at that point, Hearts were knocking on the door. Don't get me wrong, but we were defending, sturdily. We were hanging in there, and I felt we were good on the counter. But to go 1-0 down to a cheap, soft penalty like that, it just kicks you in the guts. It really just takes the wind out your sails.
Did you think the three at the front worked in the first half? Like Dyson Maeda, I always fancy him a bit deeper than he was. And Ida, for all actually, I think he creates a lot of space. I think he bullies defenders. I think he's quite a clever centre forward and is an unexpectedly good package that we've inherited from Norwich City for this part of the season. Any strong feelings about how that worked or not in the first half?
Yeah, I thought Adamida, he sort of worked his socks off. You could tell he was knackered in the second half because he's obviously not used to putting that much of a shift in. Maeda gives you a shift regardless. So, you knew with those two up top, you're still getting probably the work rate of almost three players anyway. You knew Rodgers was going to go with them and Yang as their front three because obviously it worked so well against Dundee. So you're not going to really change a winning, especially when you win so emphatically. You're going to keep with that formation. So that team selection. For me, like I said, I just feel that as soon as we obviously lost a man, the midfield kind of started to overran, which is kind of what you expect. It's where you really needed Callum McGregor. You just wonder how the game might have panned out had he had been on the park. And I guess at least the next major incident after their goal is Tomoki Awata getting caught right on half time, dawdling on the ball. He's looking to try and play a pass out to Maeda. It takes far too long. I think it was Bengamy. He sort of puts in a sliding challenge and wins possession. The ball finds its way out the ball gets to Alan Forrest. He carries it, takes far too long to play in Shankland, and thankfully took too long to the point where Shankland runs himself offside just. So again, we were quite fortunate there. So we could have been 2-0 at half time. Thankfully not. Shankland, as much as I despise the guy, I really think he's putting a strong case in to be Scotland's centre forward. Leading up to the next major tournament, the Euros, because I just think he's, not the Euros, it'll be the World Cup, because it's Euros. I was right. He's, I just feel that he's, got much more goal scoring threat than either Big Shay Adams or Lyndon Dykes, but I digress. But Stevie Clark was obviously there watching him as well, so it doesn't hurt his chances there, even though it was offside. So we get into the half.
Yeah. So into the second half, though, he didn't hesitate when he got his second opportunity. Neuhoff, the Australian connection for this particular podcast, I think that's the closest we're going to get. He tripped over the ball, or an amazing cutback, depending on who you talk to. It's a Celtic podcast, but we were looking a wee bit shaky at that point.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the 10-man thing does start to take its toll. I think that the fact that I think Lindehoff sort of throws everyone off because the way he sort of trips over the ball, I kind of just felt that everyone was off balance. In the lead up again, I'll be Paul this week because Paul's got a bee in his bonnet about Liam Stales. Stales could have done better in the lead up to the goal. So the ball comes in. He's in a one-on-one with I think it was with Shankland, and he just needs to be strong and just win his header. So again, weak header falls to a Hearts player, and then that allows them to play a bit of a 1-2, getting around Stales and Carter Vickers. And like I said, Lindelof, whatever, he obviously falls over, and the ball just pops up perfectly for Shankland, and he very rarely misses. And interestingly enough, he scored over 50% of Hearts goals this season. I mean, that's quite a stat, and obviously shows how reliant they are on him. And I think Rodgers did say before the game that if they can keep Shankland quiet, then they're a good chance of winning the game. And I suppose that's a fair comment. So that makes it 2-0.
He's got more confidence in Liam Scales though than Rocky or Holm.
When Rossi's injured, but yeah.
But I mean, any of these guys there was a bench full of defenders, and although not any of them even natural kind of central defender fit, we've just got CCV back, who arguably has made an enormous difference already. Are we still a wee bit kind of sugary in that kind of central defensive area? Is that going to be a kind of key area for strengthening?
Well, it might end up being, Richard, because I know we spent £8 million on 2 centre halves at the start of the season, but Rossi's not holding his spot. He's been riddled with injuries, like he keeps getting soft tissue injuries. Lader Bielka was out the door in January, but the only thing that meant that he didn't go was the fact that there was an injury to Carter Vickers, so that was the only reason he hung around. He made the bench on the weekend, but again, nowhere near it really. And then obviously the other one, Stephen Welsh, but again, he has his limitations as well. So I'm not. I keep caveating the point that Stales has done well this season. Like he's filled a gap, he's done a job, but I feel that if we're being critical, two key opportunities there that they've scored the 2 goals have come from things that he could have done better, and a better defender would have done better. So, he plays better with Carter Vickers beside him, but he's still culpable and capable of making those mistakes. So for me, that's the issue. And then, like you say, when Narosti injured, he's obviously the logical replacement, but he's not available. I can't see Lader Bielka getting in unless either Carter Vickers or Stales gets injured. And then again, the other option there is Welsh, and we know what Welsh can do. So that partnership will stay provided they're both fit, but it just needs to be something that needs to be reviewed. Presumably, we need to be the end of the season now, but Rodgers is obviously backing them in.
Sorry, I'll get back to the game in a second, but I think I texted you about halfway through that second half and saying I miss Carl Starfelt. I never thought I'd ever text anyone to say that I miss Carl Starfelt.
I love Big Carl, and the more that he's been away this season, you just kind of you just kind of realize that what a job that he did. He covered Taylor's wing because Taylor likes to bomb on, and Carl Starfelt just covered that left side brilliantly, and it was down to his raw pace, but good footballer as well, good defender. And he was strong in the air. And if his ball connected with his head, it was flying 20 meters away. Like he could clear his 18-yard box, no problems with a header. So, definitely didn't replace him adequately. He's currently in a relegation battle with Celtic Vigo at the moment. So he's hanging in there. Big Carl, he's under a relegation battle. So a bit of a difference, bit of a change of scenery for him. Like one minute win the league, next minute try to stay up. So
he's just up away from his girlfriend, though. That's what really mattered to him. So
but how cheaper flight? EasyJet, mate. It's 45 minutes. Alicante, you're up and you're down. But anyway, and I suppose we may as well touch on it now. I know this is not really anything to do with the game, but obviously Leo Labada, the mood music is that he's off to Charlotte FC for around about 8 million quid. Again, a bit of a sad end there. Part of the Celtic Down Under crew, we do predictions at the start of the season, and then obviously at the end of the season, we show them and say, "Oh, these are all the things we said were going to happen, and what happened." Abada was my tip for player of the season for not only for Celtic but for the league. I really thought he had a big season ahead of him, but nobbled by injury early doors, and then nobbled by well, I'm going to try to say a genocide in Gaza. Feel for the guy, a lot of outside pressure there on him, but again, if we can get a decent fee for him, it's probably not exactly what he's worth, but again, it's better than nothing. Then we move on, and he can pick up his career in America, but yeah, kind of a bit of another sliding. It's a weekend of sliding doors, Richards. It's Gwyneth Paltrow and John Hannah.
All of that. Yeah.
Is
that what you've been watching?
Well, it kind of makes me feel like when I watch that movie, because like kind of what happens. But so yeah, what was your thoughts on the Bada? I mean, any?
Yeah, I really like Lyle Bada. I think it's really just an unfortunate set of circumstances. He did very, very well, was an entertaining player to watch, created so many opportunities and spaces, scored some great goals. Just really unfortunate that, that the whole kind of situation has developed the way it's developed in places other than Celtic Park.
Yeah. No, so like I said, we although it doesn't end well, you wish him all the best and hope that he can resurrect his footballing career elsewhere. Just to come back and a few of the comments, there's a bit of chat going on in the channel where we are live. So Paddy Laughlin, full Sky Sports panel on Ref Watch, are flabbergasted by the decisions. Yes, you just missed as Patrick talking about it. We were equally flabbergasted. And then what we got here, Mahesh saying Starfelt was the quickest player in the squad other than Maeda. Yep, I think we all could agree with that. And what's Pam? Hi, Pam. How you doing? Hope you're all keeping well. We are, Pam. And Mahesh is saying here that at 2-0, you've got to take risks, nothing ventured, nothing gained. And I kind of feel, and we're going back a wee bit here, but obviously the change at halftime was to substitute Paulo Bernardo for Kyogo. I sort of said in the group chat at halftime that if we lose 1-0 or 3-0 or 4-0, it really doesn't matter. I'd rather have a go and try and create some chances and maybe get back in the game. And if you can snag a draw, and then the weekends, not a bust, because you're actually you close the gap. You don't actually, it doesn't widen. It can't widen. I mean, the only thing that widens the goal difference, but ultimately there's nothing to lose. So I was fully behind Rodgers making the decision to put Kyogo up. It harked back to the time where we went down to 10 men, where Joseph Simonovic did the old elbow on one of the Rangers players. I can't remember who it was, and the linesman, he had his flag up so quick he couldn't. He's nearly having an epileptic fit, and then that led to Big Jozo getting sent off, and obviously this was the game that led to the allocations being cut, because we put on Odson Edward and went 2 up top, and him and Dembele linked up to make it 3-2, and we ended up winning the game. And I was at the casino. A good mate of ours, Johnny Forrester, that night. I'll never forget that night, because I don't think I've ever celebrated a goal so hard in my life. So when Kyogo, I was just a bit of a trip down memory lane there, but when Kyogo came on, I thought, here we go. We're going to go 2 up top. We're just going to catch them on the break. We're just going to, we're going to score these wonderful goals, and it's just, we're going to jag this 2-1. We're just going to walk away with a victory, and we're really going to make a statement, even though we're down to 10 men. Didn't quite pan out that way, Richard. So what did you make of the substitution? And I suppose the introduction of Daniel Kelly as well, because he came on at the 70th minute for Awata. Interestingly, preferred to Odin Thiago Home, who you would have thought would maybe have been the logical next cab off the rank there. But what were your thoughts on Brendan's substitutions? There were 2 in the match.
I thought that Ida and Kyogo linked up pretty well. I think given the kind of midfield resource that we had during that game, they were probably not as well served as perhaps they might have been. I thought the Iwata decision was interesting. I don't know enough about Kelly. Obviously, got his debut in his first goal against Dundee in the middle of the week, and not in a place to judge whether he's an attacking or a holding or a defending. But yeah, it's like kind of it's that sort of let's just go for broke type thing. I'm not sure I necessarily agree with you about the kind of how many goals we get beat by. You know, if we get beat by one, you know, the goal difference is tight. It's different from other seasons where there's usually 5 or 10 of a difference between us and Rangers, and this season it's not. And I think that if you know, one team getting a pumping while, you know, Hearts getting pumped by Rangers 5-0, I actually looked at that, I thought, that's not great, because, you know, if there's only a point or two in it and they've got more goals, we're in trouble. And then we went and beat Dundee 7-1. So, you know, I like the idea that that Brendan was willing to go for it. I like the idea that Kyogo, I still think has loads more than loads of other players in Scotland, and will still score goals again. He's just having a bit of a dry period. I thought it was entertaining the way that linked up. They kind of flattered to deceive, though. They didn't really make any kind of clear-cut chances. Ultimately, yeah, look, this is a story about the narrative was all about the kind of 10 men and trying to contain it. Hearts played quite well. Hate to say it, but Hearts played quite well and also contained us at times when we were, and you mentioned about kind of crowding the midfield and so on. They started with 5 in midfield. So, you know, we were always on a hiding to nothing. And even when, and it was all intelligent rebalancing that went on, even when that went on, Hearts were still soaking up pressure, and hitting us on the break, which is, they knew that we were going to come at them. They knew that we were going to attack them. There was no way a Celtic team was going to sit back and wait for it to just be a 1-0 or a 2-0 and we'll take that. So, not credit to them for going for it the way they did. But yeah, I thought it was an interesting balance, and it's an interesting move. I think it'll be an interesting partnership to see how that develops. Whether Dies and Maeda, I have a thing about Dies and Maeda on that left side. That he's not a natural left winger.
He's better on the left than he is on the right, but I guess I think what you're saying is you're looking more for a Jota on the wing, which we don't have, unfortunately. And like I said, we're just selling our right winger at the moment. It brings in a good point here from Maesh. Only 2 subs, no Palmer and no Home. Beggars belief. The time for throwing punches in those last 30 minutes, not after the press conference. I guess my dad touched on it with Palmer. He was quite surprised that he didn't get on, and then I'm sort of thinking, well, would that have been the sort of game that would have suited Palmer? Like, is he really the guy that rolls his sleeves up and gets stuck in? I don't know. Would he? I just think he'd be a bit of an empty jersey in that situation. So I don't know. I kind of feel that Rodgers got that one right. I mean, obviously, hindsight's a wonderful thing, and maybe he goes on, he does score the goal, scores a goal and gets his back in it. Just, you know, at 2-0, if we score one with 10, 15 minutes to go, then you just never know. Like, the pressure might get to Hearts. But, you know, we had that one good chance where the ball came out to Ida. He shot. Xander Clark's made a good save. It's come back out to Matt O'Reilly, and he sort of had a shot. It's blocked. There's a couple of half chances. Kyogo was really the instigator for most of them. Like, he was either initiating the counter attack or sort of, you know, getting involved. So I thought Kyogo played reasonably well without obviously, you know, getting a real clear cut chance himself, sort of thing. But I still think it was the right thing to do. But, you know, obviously, you know, it didn't work out that way, and we walked away 2-0 with a 2-0 defeat. But like you say, as far as the goal difference is concerned, well, that's, you know, we've only lost a goal in comparison to Rangers. So all in all, it's As You Were, which is the title of this week's podcast, by the way. And at this point in time, very smooth. I know. I would like to just say that, you know, it does help immensely if you do like the episode or the video. So please leave a like. And if you're not subscribed to the Celtic Down Under YouTube channel, please do. Because it just helps you get notified and keep up to date when we are going live. We go live at 12:30 Celtic Park time every Monday night when there's a Celtic game on the weekend. So we will have a break in a couple of weeks when there's the international break. We love you getting involved live on the comments. It's great to have a chat. And even if you can't comment live when you watch the video later, please leave a comment in the comment section. I always read them through the week. It's always great to get your feedback. And we really appreciate you taking the time to watch and digest, because it's good to have 24 hours to let your blood not boil as much as it did 24 hours beforehand. Richard, Brendan, you touched on it, and I think it's probably a good idea at this point just to reiterate. So Brendan Rodgers, he was calculated last weekend, where he was very clear in what he was saying. He said the same thing in all his press conferences about a narrative. This week, it was the officiating. First thing he said on the Sky Sports interview was he was proud of his players. They put in a shift. They tried really hard, didn't quite obviously get the result, but they worked their socks off. So that was big tick for me. Second thing was the officiating was terrible. He couldn't tell what the officials were seeing. He calls out John Beaton by name, doesn't say VAR, he says John Beaton, and he says, he's watching a different game, re-refereeing, terrible decisions. What did you make of Brendan Rodgers' comments, and was he justified? Do you think he'll see any reprisals from the league for his comments, or was he measured enough that he'll get away with it?
I think he was measured enough, but I still think he'll get reprisals. And I think that by identifying, that's quite a dodgy thing to do as an old firm manager in the west of Scotland, identifying an official. I mean, there's no unknowns here. There's a kind of perennial sort of feeling that John Beaton has made perhaps interesting decisions, let's call them that, when he's been particularly in VAR and particularly when he's refereeing Celtic. And I found it actually, again, the consistency of message, I found it really interesting. Stephen Fletcher after the game said, and he was very balanced actually after the game. I mean, he was obviously proud of his players, and I won't get too bogged down in what Hearts managers are saying, but
Stephen Naismith,
the big pun. He said that he thought that the penalty was soft, accepted the offside decision, which was correct, and also said that they thought the sending off was harsh. So I think that's where Brendan's probably got something stronger. I think there's probably a quiet room where all these guys get together, they sit down and they talk about it, and they go, what's really going on here? I hope that's actually what's going to happen. I think that there's a lot of learning to do. I think they did some learning last season after the start of VAR. This isn't working, and I think that Brendan was angry enough, and I've never seen him that angry actually. I think he was very controlled, but I've never seen him that angry.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's definitely annoyed, upset, angry, and I think rightly so. I mean, yeah, those two decisions changed the whole context of the game. And unfortunately, we're on the receiving end. But I suppose the only caveat I'd say to all that is that if we score that penalty and we go 1-0 up, that potentially changes the complexion of that entire game. So as much as we were hard done by, again, our inability to convert penalties this season, that's us 5 from 10, Richard, which I think that's bad. I know Shanklin's missed the last 3, which is why he handballed duties for the penalty on the weekend. Joe Hart called him a shite bag as well.
Yes, I'm congratulating him. I'm quite good leader too, yes, among other things.
But I thought we found a penalty taker in Ida, but for him to miss that and such a weak penalty, you don't mind it if it's being saved and it's a strong strike and it's a good save. Then you go, well, all right, that's unlucky, but to hit it so weakly and straight down the middle like that, I was just like, even if it's just half a yard to his right, it's in the back of the net. Like, the keeper had committed. He just had to hit it was disappointing. And like I said, at the time it was disappointing, but it was like just no idea the context of that penalty and the whole scheme of that match. And it's a missed opportunity because obviously Rangers slip up. we could have went back to being 1 point clear at the top of the table. That would have really, again, put the pressure back on them. And then they get let off. And I suppose in a part, they might be looking at it going, well, they thought that we'd maybe struggle against Hearts anyway. And then they've missed an opportunity as well. So, I mean, it probably cuts both ways to a certain degree. But obviously we're Celtic Sport, so, we feel that, we probably missed one there. Paddy McLaughlin, sorry. Would a referee be allowed to go and party in a Man City pub after yesterday's derby? Yes, I know. Disclosing some allegiances would maybe go a long way. There would be an uproar. Yes, there would be. I think we are. It was a Richard. Richard, did you have any more points from the game? Anything that we haven't covered, or anything that you noticed, or that you wanted to discuss?
Not really. I got cross towards the end and maybe kind of zoned out in the last kind of 5 minutes or so. It's one of those kind of games where you kind of thought, we could play for another 20 minutes. In fact, I think we did play for another 20 minutes just about after that. I think it was 100 minutes of football all up. But yeah, disappointing. Disappointing after the energy of Wednesday night. There you go. That was the most confronting thing about it, because we had played so well in that first half against Dundee, and if you could just bottle that spirit and take that to the next thing, there are definitely gaps here. This is going to need some surgery in the close season, but we've got what we've got at the moment. I think we've still got enough, and I don't think Rangers are a great team by any stretch. All I'm hoping for now at this stage is that for them to have a prolonged European run, which will help the coefficient and also completely knacker them out, and we'll win the league.
I love your thinking, Richard. We've got Livingston in the Cup next week, so I guess we might do a quick look ahead. We've got a bit of time. So was there, obviously from the team that sort of started on the weekends, is there any sort of changes that you would make? Is there anyone you bring back in? I don't know if Yang will serve his suspension in the next league game, so I don't know if he'll be available for the Cup. It's different competition. So would you keep Yang, or would you bring someone else in knowing that he's not available the week after? That midfield, you said it was a bit out of balance. How would you correct that? Is there anyone on the team that you feel deserves a run that's not getting one at the moment?
Interesting. I would probably drop Dyson Maeda. Even though I love Dyson Maeda, I think he's one of our most effective and energetic players. I'd probably give Bernardo, Yang, and even Palma a bit of a nod initially. I think there's still going to be balance issues. Iwata is a stick on, but what I found interesting was the Kyogo Ida combination. I think that's interesting. I think Livingston they're going to smell blood. They haven't played well all season. They've had a terrible season, and we should pump them. But I think that they'll smell blood at Celtic, and I think that the kind of 4-3-3 isn't really working. I think that it will be interesting to see if we push a little bit more width and give these guys a bit more space inside. I think they'll create a lot of opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I still, Kyogo's still one of your best players. It's like, how do you get him in that team? If you're not going to play two up top, then what other options have you got? I still think potentially as a left wing, I still think he could do damage in that channel, and he'll draw players because you just can't leave Kyogo unmarked, and that in theory will create the space for Big Adamida. But yeah, I just have him sitting on the bench. It's just like, how do you harness Kyogo and then use Ida as well? Because Ida's been, he's been good since he's come to Celtic. So, and Rodgers was saying that he was instrumental in getting him to the club. And I wonder if he'd be saying that if Ida's not had a great start, but obviously, 4 goals in five games. You're sort of thinking, well, you'd be taking responsibility for it if you had anything to do with that. So that's an interesting one, and one that I feel Rodgers needs to solve if we're going to win the league. Is how do you utilize Kyogo and Ida, and in what combination, and how do you manage that scenario? And then, like I said, I think the other hurdle at the moment is how do you manage not having Callum McGregor in your team? So I know Home got some minutes early in the season and so has seemingly just dropped straight out the pecking order. There's a bit about that kid. So I don't know if the Livingston game at home would maybe be an opportunity to see what he's got. He's got a bit of fight about him. He might give that midfield a little bit more of a bit more dig. But how do you him and Iwata together? Maybe a little bit too similar, but maybe in place of Iwata, because I didn't feel Iwata had the best of games on the weekends. I kind of feel he was a wee bit ropey, and obviously coughs that chance up. But again, I guess it's a bit different. It's a bit different romping it at home against Dundee versus having to deal with Hearts at Tynecastle. So it's a bit more of a pressure environment. So there's a bit more going on, a bit more in your face. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what way Rodgers goes during the week. Richard, it's this point in time that we select our man of the match. I know it's hard when we get beat, but at the moment, I'm really going to be down by you here because I haven't got the faintest idea who I'm going to pick.
I remember, and you asked me this before we started, and I'm going, oh, it's a bit of a rogues gallery. I'm going to go Cameron Carter because
I was going to say that
he didn't put much wrong. One of the few he didn't put a lot wrong. You can argue the toss about the kind of Shankland goals and the rest of it, but I think we've already touched on the fact that we don't hold him accountable for that. I just think he's a kind of steadying presence. I think it would have been an awful lot worse without him, frankly. So yeah, I'll give it grudgingly to CCV because just a rogues gallery, I'm afraid.
Yeah, no, I'm ready to count Victors as well. I feel that he did really well to play Shankland offside for that goal right before half time. I thought he was solid in what he did, and tries to get the ball moving at the back as quickly as he can. But yeah, it was kind of hard to pick anybody else. I think we've got in the comments. Anthony McGuire, not me, somebody else. AJ, yeah, I think that's a reasonable shout. Have anyone else in the comments any thoughts? Please get in touch and let us know who you thought the man of the match was. But usually we've got a vote of 3, but we've got a vote of 2 today. So, and usually Paul and I agree. So Paul and Richard, Richard and I are in agreement as well. So that bodes well. It's good signs. We're obviously we're watching the same game. Can't say the same about cheating beating. Richard, have you got any reviews, any recommendations, anything that you want people to watch, something that you've come across, music, film, TV, anything? Could be anything. Could be a play.
So my top tip for this week is I think called Blue Lights. It's a drama series, Northern Ireland TV. I'm sorry if it's been up here before. Done by the BBC. It's on SBS on demand, so you don't have to pay a penny to see it. And the other thing I saw, and again this is old, but series 2, I'm just catching up with Clarkson's Farm. I mean, he is the Egypt, but it is absolute comedy gold. Yeah. Anyway,
he is such a warmer. Like he is just honestly like. You just sit there, and then it's the young lad that makes that show though. As much as it's Clarkson, it's what's his name, the guy with the red hair, Caleb. Oh, yeah. Dead funny, star in the making. Because I mean, he's just like, you idiot. What were you? I always go back to the first season when he buys a stupid big tractor, the big Mercedes Maserati tractor. It's like, you can't do that in the shed. Like, you can't do that in the yard. And it was quite funny because Clarkson was actually at the Grand Prix on the weekend. It was the opening weekend of the Grand Prix. So Max Verstappen won again. Surprise, surprise.
Wow.
And Clarkson was there waving the flag, but he was absolutely sozzled. He was on the grid before the race, and Martin Brundle does his grid walk, which is cringe TV. And he goes up to Clarkson, and he's like, Clarkson's just talking absolute guff. And it's like, he's steaming. So, I mean, fair play for being able to talk on camera, because like he was obviously had a few, but yeah, no,
YouTube somewhere.
Yeah. So I haven't got anything because I sat and watched Formula One on the weekend. My wife's obsessed, so so that, and then the off-field scandal with Christian Horner and cheating on Jerry Halliwell. So he still kept his job. At the moment, he's kept his job. I don't know if that's going to persist, but there was a bit of a leak online of all his text messages and stuff, and I read some of them, and it's just it's bad. It's very it's not good.
Salacious tittle tattle a la John Beaton.
Yes, it's yes, but I think that's us for this week, Richard. Unless there was anything that you wanted to add
Nope.
before we sign off. No,
Brilliant. I hope we
guys.
do well against Livingston. Hail, hail.
I hope so too. Everyone, thank you so much for watching. Paul will be on holidays again for the next couple of weeks, so I don't think he's back until after the St Johnstone game, I think he said. So he's definitely not going to be here next week. Richard will be with me. He's sorted out his gremlins. The gremlins have crept into the VAR office. They're no longer in Richard's laptop, which is great. So all that's left to say is hail, hail.